Despite the recent social media hype surrounding this Pete Alonso saga, he still remains on the market with no deal close. We are getting into the latest Pete Alonso report right here on the True Mets Talk podcast. All right, what's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the True Mets Talk podcast. It's your boy CP, and the Pete Alonso saga continues. This is your weekly Pete Alonso report, as we'll talk about what Jon Heyman stated today, and we'll also talk about some of the hype that we saw on social media, in particular X, surrounding the Pete Alonso situation. As always, smash on those like buttons if you enjoy the content. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel and make sure to go ahead and comment your thoughts and opinions on how you see this Pete Alonso situation resolving itself, whether it's with the Mets or any other team. Okay, Jon Heyman went on MLB Network today and basically talked about Pete Alonso, mentioned some teams that were interested in who he sees as front runners for Pete Alonso in these sweepstakes, and we'll get into that here in the next slide. But he also mentioned that right here in quotes on your screen, that this situation could go on for a while as Pete Alonso and Scott Boras figure out what situation and which contract offer is the best and makes the most sense for Pete Alonso. Now, in addition to this, the reason why I really wanted to make this podcast episode is to urge everybody that decides to get their news primarily from social media, be careful who you listen to, because there's a lot of accounts out there that will jump to conclusions once they hear just a tiny bit of a report, and they'll try to blow it up in order to be first and have the inside scoop to be first. And this creates a lot of chaos. This creates a lot of confusion. Maybe these people thrive off of that. I have no idea what the actual intentions are. But as we've said, even going back to last offseason, when we were going through this same merry-go-round, back then is for Yoshinobu Yamamoto, wait for the reliable reporters like Heyman, like Rosenthal, like Jeff Passan to break some news, because we've heard a lot of Toronto Blue Jays accounts today jumping to some conclusions, stating that Pete Alonso is on the verge of, or is quote unquote close to, a deal with the Blue Jays, which is just simply not true. If you go ahead and take a look at what this Jon Heyman quote is saying right here on your screen. And maybe some fans don't know how to decipher what's what, because now there are people in the Mets community also running with those reports that you hear on Blue Jays Twitter. And then we're starting to get actual figures. I've seen multiple accounts say 3 for 75 could be the figure valuation between the Blue Jays and Pete Alonso, and it's just simply not true. Now, I'm not saying that it can't be true within the next couple of days and things change and quickly progress, but from what we've been hearing right now, nothing is imminent. So if you've seen those reports, if you've seen those tweets on X, disregard them for right now. Disregard them, because it's just misinformation. But let's just go ahead and talk about what Jon Heyman actually did say as it relates to Pete Alonso right here. Heyman did go on to say that he thinks the Mets and the Blue Jays are the most likely destinations for Pete Alonso. Again, the Blue Jays, it's very evident that they are in on Pete Alonso. They're going to be offering him a contract. We don't have any figures, despite what these false reports are saying. We don't have any figures as to what it is. We do know what the Mets offered just last week. 3 years with opt-outs between $68 to $70 million. And Will Salmon also said that they could and would be willing to go higher. We could assume that it could look like 3 for 75 with what the Mets' best offer might look like. But Jon Heyman is dwindling this down to the Mets versus the Blue Jays as of his MLB Network appearance today. He also stated that the Angels are very interested in Pete Alonso as well, but there is a hiccup between the two sides on the amount of years for Pete Alonso. I hope for Pete Alonso's sake, he doesn't decide to take a deal with the Los Angeles Angels, because that would be a bad look. in terms of whether he truly wanted to be a New York Met at the end of the day. We talked about that yesterday on the Mets Hot Stove live stream. If you missed that, I'll link that in the description down below. But again, no one is faulting Pete Alonso. At the end of the day, if this resolves itself with him taking the most money, not myself nor any other Mets fan should blame him for taking the most money. This is a business at the end of the day on both sides of the coin for Pete Alonso and for David Stearns and the New York Mets. But if Pete Alonso goes elsewhere, you better believe we're talking about pivot points, not named Brett Beatty. So stay tuned, because when Pete Alonso actually does sign official from one of the big name reporters, and not just, for lack of a better term, random people on X, I will be going live. We'll be talking about it, and we'll be talking about what the next best option is for the New York Mets in a scenario where it's a life without Pete Alonso. Now, again, per John Heyman, the Mets are still in this. The Mets and Alonso are still talking. So we will see what the resolution is very shortly. Mets fans, again, I appreciate you all. Don't fall for the clickbait. Don't fall for the misinformation in this Pete Alonso saga. Stick to the facts. I'll provide the factual information here as well once it becomes available. I promise I won't jump the gun. And as always, smash those like buttons, subscribe to the channel. And as always, let's go Mets. It's going to be okay. Baseball's here soon. Peace.